Welcome back. Federal employees that are already teleworking could keep working remotely a lot longer. A new survey from GovExec says 60% of feds that are working out of the office now expect to keep working from out of the office for the next 6 months or more. Greg Giddens is partner at Potomac Ridge Consulting, former chief acquisition officer at the Department of Veterans Affairs. Greg, thanks for coming back on. What do you think this looks like, say, 6 months out, if a lot of the acquisition workforce is still working in this dispersed fashion? I'm not thinking so much about the fact that they're not working working in the office as I am about the fact that they're not working together in collaborative groups face to face.
So, Francis, I do think what we're currently seeing is going to be around for a while. But I've got a lot of confidence in the acquisition workforce. And in fact, if you think about people that can understand how to maneuver in the maze of the federal acquisition system, figuring out how to do telework is not going to be that challenging for them. Most agencies leaned in hard and got the right IT infrastructure and support in so that they have the ability to actually connect and communicate. Because I think that is the biggest issue that we'll have moving forward, is how do you keep that connection within the office, that collaboration, but much more focused within the office. Because if you think about it, most procurement organizations, acquisition offices, were already physically separated from both their internal mission, customer, and industry that's delivering the solution. So this is a lot about how leadership can find other tools and mechanisms to bring the organization and keep them together.
When I first came into this community many years ago, our mutual friend Stan Soloway said it takes about 5 years to grow an acquisition professional before that person is really ready to run on his or her own. Is that timeline change at all in a remote work environment, given the importance of these folks communicating with each other, collaborating with each other, someone taking another person under his or her wing to really help them learn the ropes?
So I think that might have even shortened over the past years. And in this environment, it may still shorten some. We've mostly got used to using this magic mirror, Zoom or Teams or Skype or whatever tool of choice people have. And what I've found is leaders are really being able now to focus on managing performance and not managing presence. So they're looking at their teams, they're understanding what their needs are. They're using some tools like National Contract Management Association has an online assessment tool for procurement professionals. There are other tools out there so that managers, when they're now in a position where they can't manage by wandering around, they can have some tools that help assess where the team is, what types of training they might need so they can focus on that. And of course, there's lots of online training that people can take advantage of once you really understand where the needs and the gaps are.
Do you measure the outcomes of acquisitions or measure the skills of your workforce or anything like that differently, or you just apply the same measures as we've applied historically, Greg?
I think you have to look at different ways to measure that, because I think there was some of that inherent measurement when everybody was in the office, and you could walk around, you could overhear the conversations, you could have all the pop-up conversations. But I think now what you need to do is to look at the assessment tools that are out there and use those to understand where people are in their journey. And you may find some people really not from a training perspective, but from an experiential perspective. And leaders can look at those situations and find more dynamic, more complex acquisitions in order to keep challenging people to continue to grow them. The biggest risk, I think, is that we have a workforce that becomes stagnant. There's a lot of focus on how you can improve that and make sure that everybody is operating at the top of their certifications.
What about onboarding? One of the issues that private sector companies have spoken a lot about over the last several months is that process of bringing somebody new into an organization and having that person feel integrated into the organization and learning about just kind of how things work. Maybe this is how things work, and maybe that doesn't matter as much as people are thinking about, but I wonder what that looks like from your perspective.
I think it does matter, that early assimilation of somebody coming into an organization. And what I've seen a lot of companies as well as federal organizations and agencies do is assign them really with a buddy. And I know, we may all kind of snicker at that term, but really assign them with somebody that can help bring them on and they can stay connected. Again, stay connected through Zoom or Teams or Skype, but also organizations are leveraging lunch and learns as a way to keep the organization connected and together. And in this virtual age, you don't have to worry about who's local. You can really establish that connection with anybody across the country or the world as another way to help the organization come together. But that initial assimilation still becomes a focus point, and it requires somebody in the office being willing to take that person along with them and bring them kind of under their wing for the first few months.
Do the skills that make for a good acquisition professional change in this environment, Greg, or are the skills still the skills?
I think the skills are still the skills. The work is changing, though. Automation is coming. You know, the leverage of acquisition professionals using artificial intelligence, machine learning to take some of the transactional activity off of their shoulders so they can focus more on process and kind of the intellectual gymnastics of acquisition. I think that will continue as organizations move forward.
Greg, about 30 seconds left. What will you watch moving forward to see how this turns out?
Well, I watch how people and really organizations continue to understand that work is becoming more about what you do, not where you do it. And I'll also be watching to see what happens when schools become more kind of typical in classroom instruction. We haven't seen a negative tick in performance. I think we'll see a positive tick when that happens and you have parents and guardians being at home and able to focus on work without having to worry about doing school at home as well.
Greg Giddens, thank you very much as always.
My pleasure, Francis. Thank you.